Today is June 18th, 2009. I'm visiting with Mitch Kilcrease, who is the director of the OSU Student Union. We're on the Oklahoma State University campus in Stillwater, Oklahoma. This interview is for the O State Storage Project, which is part of the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program. Mitch, I appreciate you taking time from all your duties to come over and visit with us this afternoon.
Glad to be here, Jerry.
You know, there's a lot of questions I'm going to ask you about yourself personally,
Sure.
about the student union. But I'd like to start, if you don't mind, with your early history. For example, can you tell us a little bit about where you grew up,
Okay.
about your family life?
Yeah, I'm the baby of a family of 8. Got 7 brothers and sisters. I grew up in western Colorado, over by around Aspen. Colorado is where I grew up. I was born in Utah. My dad was a coal miner, and in Arkansas, which is where he grew up. My mom and father, and they moved out west to Utah and worked in the coal mines, and then he got transferred to Colorado about 3 years after I was born in Utah. And so I grew up in western Colorado, pretty idyllic setting to grow up in, pretty good childhood.
What can you tell a little bit about what you did in high school, where you grew up,
Okay.
around your school, and a little bit.
Small town community, little town called Paonia, Colorado. My graduating class was 72. I won't tell you where I fell in that ranking order, but it was a pretty small town. I often liken it to Mayberry RFD. My mom knew 2 minutes before I got in trouble that I was in trouble. You didn't lock your cars. You left your keys. You'd go on vacation for 2 weeks, and you just didn't worry about things. People took care of their own other kids. You'd be out until dusk or dark, and you never really worried about your kids. Somebody was always watching after them. They knew where you were. So a very small town mentality. One of my favorite stories to tell is I lived a street off Main Street, and my mom, who did not drive, would give me a grocery list, and she would write it, put it in an envelope, and put money and pin it on my shirt. And I would take my red wagon and go to Main Street, and the Star Mercantile in town, they would take it off, fill the order, put the money back in it, and my little red wagon, and I'd go back home again on it. So very small town.
Were you into sports in high school?
Yeah, sports and band. I played football, wrestled, basketball. Wasn't a star athlete by any stretch of the imagination, but always did those kind of things. Was probably a little bit more into speech and theater and some of those kind of things later on in high school. But yeah, I played sports.
And what was the name of the town again?
Paonia. Paonia. It was actually named after peony, the flower peony, but they couldn't pronounce it, so it wound up being called Paonia. It was a small farming ranch community and coal mines.
Mitch, what do you recall about some of the values you learned in a small town, growing up from your family, and that influenced you later in your life?
Sure. Like I said, it was a farming, ranching community, blue-collar community, coal mines. So I learned a lot about work ethic. My dad was a superintendent at a coal mine. We had a lot of ranchers and farmers in the area, and so I learned an awful lot about work ethic. A good day's work was rewarded, not always with money, but it was rewarded, and how people felt about you or how they thought about you. Small town with a lot of churches, so there was a lot of, I would say, religious values were very much a part of your day-to-day life. Like I say, it was about as close to being in Mayberry RFD as you could ever possibly imagine. The sheriff knew your name. They didn't carry a gun. People just knew who you were, and there was a lot of what I would consider small town values. Your word was as good as anything, a check or money. Your word was your honor, and when you would give that, people took that, and that's what they take to the bank. So a lot of those kind of values.
So where did you go to college? Can you share a little about your higher education?
Yeah, my college education is kind of an ironic one. In the town I grew up in, people would a lot of kids in my area didn't go to college. They would leave and they'd go in the coal mines. I mean, at 18 years of age, you was making $18, $20 an hour, which was pretty good money. And that's what I did. Right out of high school, I went in the coal mine. I probably would still be there today if it wasn't for I got covered up in a coal mining incident. And it wasn't really bad. People could talk to me, and I could hear what was going on. And my dad was there. My dad was a superintendent, and so I could hear his voice talking all the time. And it took them a couple hours because they had to position stuff around the piece of equipment that I was in to get me out. And then It was about a 30-minute drive from the coal mine to where I lived, and I drove home with my dad. And we didn't say anything because he was trying to explain how he was going to explain to my mom what had happened, and I was just trying to think through it all. And we pulled up the driveway, and I asked him, I says, "Does Mom still have those college brochures?" And it scared me enough that I figured I needed to do something else. And so I spent the first 9 months out of high school, I worked in a coal mine. And so then I went to college, and to give you a sense of how how kids choose college today versus how I chose college, completely different. My whole criteria was I wanted to be far enough away from home, but I wanted to be able to get a decent meal and my laundry done. So I grew up in western Colorado, and my mom and dad and all of their family was from Arkansas. So I moved to Arkansas, and I went to a little small liberal arts college, Arkansas Tech in Russellville, Arkansas. And that's where I went to college.
What did you major in?
I majored in about everything for quite a few years on it, but I eventually ended up with a business communication degree.
Did you graduate school?
Not right afterwards. My life is one of serendipity is a good way to describe, I think, a lot of how circumstances have really guided my life a lot and what has transpired in it. When I was in college, and I've had what I would consider significant things in my life that have happened that have forced me to do some serious evaluation where I was at and what I wanted to do. When I was in college, I spent several years, and like a lot of kids, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and you kind of fumbled through a whole bunch of different things. And I worked in a pizza restaurant, a little place called King Pizza. A lot of kids put themselves through college and food service. That'll be a common theme, by the way. You'll see the irony in all of that. But I worked there for quite a few years and got to a point where I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and I had an opportunity. They wanted me to go manage one of their pizza restaurants. So I did that for a couple years, and my mother became ill with cancer during that time period. And one of the things that she asked me before she passed on was that she wanted me to finish my college degree. And so I quit what I was doing and went back to college and finished my undergraduate degree. Was very focused, had a purpose, knew what I wanted to do, and did that. And then so I was a little bit later in life, and there was always these kind of 1 or 2 year kind of breakouts that would happen that I would go do something different.
How long was that, Mitch, that time between when you left school the first time and worked for the pizza company to when you went back?
About 2 years, a little over 2 years.
Did you go back to Arkansas?
Yep, went back to Arkansas. Matter of fact, went back to the pizza restaurant I worked at and said I wanted a job, but all I wanted to do was wash dishes or make pizza. I didn't want any responsibilities. I wanted to focus. I needed to make some money, so that's what I did. I took just a baseline job and focused on my studies.
And then after that, did you go on to graduate school?
No, after that I moved back to Colorado, Denver, Colorado, and went to work for a company called Noble Cisco. However, I got to be honest, my first job out of college was in Boulder, Colorado, working for a wealthy doctor mucking barns. Mucking barns is cleaning out the stalls and that. He had a bunch of really nice horses, and I would fix fence and muck out the barns, and then I would interview for jobs in the afternoon. I was always afraid I'd walk in with a little too much odoriferous about me, but that was my first job in Boulder, and then I went to work for a food service provider called Noble Cisco. It's a very large vendor internationally. And worked for them for a couple years up in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, and then was recruited by Kellogg's Corporation. Kellogg's had a whole line of product lines that they sold to these food vendors, whether it be Cisco or Kraft or whoever it was, and institutional restaurants. And so Kellogg's recruited me because I sold a lot of their products through Noble Cisco. Moved to Phoenix, Arizona, and had Arizona and Las Vegas as my territory. And worked for Kellogg's for about 2 years. And then as an undergraduate in college, I was involved with the Student Activities Board, Student Government, and Greek Life. So I was heavily involved, and it influenced me tremendously, which is why what I do today was influenced by that. And so got just kind of disenchanted, I think, with that. And I still remember telling my dad about how I was going to quit a Fortune 500 company, had a company car, and was going to go to college, get more education, make less money. And him still trying to figure out what I was doing on that. But that's what I did. I quit my job in Phoenix with Kellogg's and moved to Emporia, Kansas. where I went to graduate school and in Emporia State University, yeah. And took that job because it was in the student union, and that's where I got really immersed in all of that. Then I'd had the activities and the programming side, but I spent a lot more time then on the operational side.
You're just kind of going back chronologically. So you graduated from high school, what?
1980.
And then you went to Tech for a few years.
For a few years, and then I laid out for a couple years, and I went back. So I graduated Tech in '87.
87.
Yeah.
Then this would have been about, what, 3 or 4 years later?
It had been, actually, it was only 3 years later about 3.5 years later, by the time it was all said and done, I went back to graduate, it was fall of '89, so it was only 2 years.
Back
Yeah.
in Emporia
Yeah.
State.
Yeah.
Then you graduated what year?
91.
91. So your interest, Mitch, a little bit there, because I had kind of one of my questions was what influenced you want to become a student union director? And I
Yeah.
think you're leading right into that. Could you share some of that with us?
Your influence a lot of times in student affairs or student services, you usually don't know that you're influenced until several years down the road. A lot of the more powerful things that happen in my life, I can draw a direct line to, being involved in a programming board or running the lecture series or student government or in Greek life, and I can attribute those qualities and what I learned directly back to all of those. So I think after I'd left for a while, and I looked back, I looked back on that as a very positive experience, and called up my advisor, a gentleman by the name of Jimmy Ferguson, and talked to Jimmy and said, you get in life where you don't kind of know whether to go right or go left, and you have these inklings of what you want to do. And he just asked me, he said, well, what did I enjoy the most? And I told him that, and he said, well, you may want to think about this. And so I did. I packed up everything I owned and moved to Kansas and never regretted it. It's the best decision I ever made.
In Emporia State, were you working in student?
Yeah, student life.
Student life. It was your.
Yeah, I was a G.
Development or something.
Yeah, my master's is in higher ed administration. But I worked in the student union as a GA and Greek life, student activities, student government, and then I did a lot of other things inside of that on the operational side. One of the unique experiences that I had, and I was older than a lot of the students. By the time I went to graduate school, I was a couple years older than that, and so had a little bit, and had I guess a little bit more worldly experiences. Had worked for a Fortune 500 food company, and so I'd had some other experiences. And the director of the student union got into a little bit of a tiff with the university, as sometimes happen, and he moved on to another position in the university. And so the assistant director of the union, who I reported to as a GA, took over as interim, and he asked me my last 6 months as a graduate student to take over the activities. So I was kind of a quasi-professional then. And did that. Yeah. And from there, then I left Emporia State after I graduated and went to Washburn University in Topeka, Kansas.
And then you have your doctorate?
No.
Some master's. Now, could you trace your career from leaving after your master's program in Emporia to when you come to OSU?
Yeah. Went from Emporia State, left there, went to Washburn University, was the director of student activities and Greek life. Once again, that was a really good job because it was you did everything. Yeah, I advised student government, IFC and Panhellenic, the student programming board, student publications. So you were kind of, I think I cleaned bathrooms and cooked in the part-time, so it was one of those kind of jobs where you did a whole bunch of different things, but it was probably one of the greater experiences that I had because I learned an awful lot from a whole bunch of different people.
And this was where again?
Washburn University in Topeka,
Kansas.
Yeah, Topeka, Kansas. So I was there until '95 and had an opportunity at that point to either pursue more of a Dean of Students track, which you see a lot of time in the student affairs, people that are in student activities and in that area will pursue that. Or I could pursue more of the operational side on a student union side. And since I had like a fairly strong food service background and a little bit of auxiliary kind of business background, that seemed to be more of a path that I wanted to go. So I had an opportunity to go to UW Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and become their assistant director And I was hired to come in and to set up their marketing department and their programming board, but I wanted the operational opportunities to move forward. So Oshkosh was a great job for me. I got hired as kind of a lateral move for me. But I was there within a year, got those things structured. They made me the associate director of the union, and I started moving away from activities and moving more in towards the business services, ID cards and the C-stores and all of their auxiliary services, their meeting conference and facility management. And eventually the food service director moved on, and so I got that responsibility and title. So I was director of food service and associate director of the union. And so then I'd pretty much moved all into auxiliaries there.
So there's a story there about how you got to OSU?
Yeah, we have to go back to Emporia, though, to get to that story. When I was a graduate student, professionally, I belonged to Association of College Unions International, which is my professional affiliation. I belong to a couple others, but that's the primary one. And they have regional conferences, and so Emporia is not that far from Stillwater, and the OSU and Emporia are all in the same ACUI regional grouping. And when I was a graduate student, ACUI regional was held here, and so I came here and got to meet Dr. Keys. I've asked Tom about that. I said, I could probably come up and kick you in the knee and you wouldn't remember me. And he didn't. But I came here and was very influenced once again by the campus, the significance of this union, on what it is and how it was operated, how Dr. Keys operated it and ran it. And I said at that point in time that I would love to work there. That would be a great opportunity. I never dreamed I'd be the director, but I would always, that was one of my top jobs that if I ever had the opportunity. And so years later, when the job came open, I applied for it, just thinking, I'll throw my hat in the ring to see if that would happen. And I got the opportunity. It was a dream job for me to come here and to work at this campus and work at this student union.
You were at Oshkosh at that time?
No, I was at Eau Claire. I'd left Oshkosh. I was there for 7 years, and then I'd gone to UW Eau Claire because I was associate director of the union, director of their dining auxiliary operations, and Eau Claire had a director of a student union position open, and so I moved to Eau Claire.
Director of student.
Student service, their student center system.
You talked a little bit, Mitch, about your how you liked some things you saw at Oklahoma State
Yeah.
University. What attracted you primarily to the position when you were a serious candidate?
If you go back and you look at kind of the history of student unions as just a general model, I hate to tell anybody this, but we stole the union idea from across the pond in England, where unions were kind of developed over there at Cambridge and Oxford around the whole idea of debating societies. And when they brought that stateside, then they really started morphing into these kind of businesses and these kind of really kind of collaborative ventures on a whole bunch of different fronts. And the traditional student union model had a very strong business component, but it also had a very strong student life and campus life component. One of the predecessors, union director that worked here, Winston Schindel at IU, used to say, "I make the money over here and they spend it over there," and that's kind of what attracted me a little bit. My passion and love has always been in campus life. I have a pretty good business sense and like the operational auxiliary side, and this allowed me to do all of that. And there's not that many unions anymore that do that. A lot of them have been broken up into pieces where they're either a business auxiliary and they no longer have the campus life element, or they're all campus life and they no longer have the business element. So to have both of those is an ideal union job. And then to encapsulate all of that into the largest student union, then to put that on a beautiful campus in Stillwater, Oklahoma, you can't ask for anything better. I mean, this is a dream job.
Can you share briefly with us your philosophy of what a student union should be?
Sure.
Generally, not the OSU, it's the student union.
Yeah, student union exists for one purpose, and that's to support academic success of students on campus. We do that through our programs and services that we offer, but our core mission of what we do is to support student success on campus. And so a student union is that kind of unique place on campus that you really can't pinpoint and hold them down and say, well, they do this. We do a whole bunch of different things on them. And the trick of it is to do it in unison and to do it well, and then to support academic success of our students. But ultimately, a student union is that home away from home, a place where students can go and either find things that they need or to engage in out-of-classroom experiences, to socialize. Dr. Bennett on this campus laid out the vision in 1937 for our student union, and he envisioned a place that would influence the social, cultural, and academic environment on campus, and it took shape in that building. And I feel very strongly that that's our purpose today. Now, we're doing it and need to do it differently than how it's done historically, but those core elements are still at our roots and who we are and what we're about.
Specifically, what is the mission of the OSU Student Union?
Our mission at the OSU Student Union is to provide students the programs and services they need to succeed academically on campus, and to make sure that they have at their hand, at their disposal, those tools and resources that will benefit them while they're here, but also long after they leave campus. We know that when students get involved in campus life and get involved in Greeks or student government or whatever, that has a significant impact, just like it did on me, that years down the road, that a lot of the skills, a lot of things that they did and learned will benefit them. So a core piece of our mission is to make sure that we support that, both financially, programmatically, and through being very intentional about it.
What early in your tenure, mentioned first come, what strengths did you identify the OSU Student Union that you wanted to build on?
First of all, it was a little intimidating coming here. Dr. Keyes, is not only an icon in the profession. People in my profession knew of him, looked at him, and I was always that guy that you always wanted to be the guy in that went. The last guy that left out was the guy that did the worst job, because you looked like a genius coming in next. So I was a little intimidated coming in, following Dr. Keyes, and what he had done for this campus and what he had done. One preceding him, and Winston Schindell's another one who is an icon. So I'm following a sequence of some pretty big shoes in those two gentlemen alone. And so to come here, though, and when I looked at it, what I saw was a very well-run organization that had been very resourceful and had some very talented people in their jobs. Earlier on, you asked me about things that I learned growing up. One of the things I learned from my dad, who was a superintendent of a coal mine, it's not always about you, it's about the people that are around you. You don't have to be the smartest guy in the room. You just got to be smart enough to let the other people do their jobs on it. And that was one of the real benefits that I came, is I inherited a very rich staff of very knowledgeable, very capable people. And we were able to develop a cohesion and work as a unit together, and have progressed, I think, the student union forward in a very progressive way. We're sitting on the brink of a major renovation of the student union 4 years after I've been here. I'm very proud of that, but it wasn't just me. I mean, there's a whole group of people, and students included, that have allowed us to do that. So to answer your question, I think the real strengths and benefits of what I got was a very well-run organization with quality people.
You came in 2005.
Yep.
Mitch, at that time, what challenges and opportunities did you perceive?
When I got here, my intentions were to kind of let the waters run by, and because you had an organization that worked and functioned. But you could also tell that the building was tired and was in need of a renovation. We needed to progress structurally and operationally in a very progressive way if we were going to maintain one of our great attributes, which is that we're a pure auxiliary. We generate all of our own revenue, and that's another real key element about why this is a really great union to work at, is there's not very many of them left that generate the revenue that this one generates that goes right back into its operation. A lot of them are subsidized now significantly. And so if we were going to maintain that historical value of being a really good auxiliary, we needed kind of the boat to do it with, and the union was in need of some significant improvements to do that. So that was, I think, one of the key challenges that I walked into. I think culturally within the organization, there were some real challenges on how we needed to start changing our culture to be a little bit more service-oriented. Particularly with the students and millennials and on what their expectations are, and we needed to start really lining that up and being a lot more service-oriented.
What are some priorities and goals that you established early on that you have for the student union? I know the maintenance improvement fundraising, but generally, what are some of your primary goals that you set? Not more general overarching kind of goals.
One is to make sure that, I always look at, we're a player in the university mission, and so early on we looked at it and said, okay, what role is it that we play in supporting the university mission? Because if the university is not here, we're not here. So we need to look at what the priorities and the goals were for the university. Then we came back and looked at that and said, okay, this is where we need to plug into that. We did some general gap analysis and say, okay, these are our strengths, these are our weaknesses. In order for us to really contribute to the university, we need to do these things. And really what it came down to was we really needed to do some operational things relative to the building to reposition it so we could better serve the greater need of the campus long term on it. And so that was a major goal of ours, is to evaluate every aspect physically of the building, to look at what we needed to do so that we could programmatically deliver services in a better format than what we currently have. So that was a primary goal. I think our other one is to maintain a core mission of ours, which is to keep the cost of education low to students. One of the things I'm very proud about is our bookstore. It runs as a privately ran bookstore and runs some of the best financials of any bookstore in the nation. Some numbers, but most university self-operated bookstores, about 28% of the textbooks they sell are used. Ours are 43%, which is a real benefit to our students because that's one of our key things, is to keep that cost low to students. And so we really have a very well-run, very efficient operation, but we haven't raised our rates significantly in almost 30 years on our margins. And we've been able to do that by just growing the business and being smart about our investments and how we do those things.
What do you see as your primary responsibility as director?
I used to say to not mess up the history of my predecessors, Winston and Dr. Keyes and the people that come before me, because they've done such a grand job and a great job of making this a signature operation, not only for the campus but nationally. But my primary day-to-day responsibilities are administrative in nature, budget, fiscal management, personnel, operational, and working in those. A lot of my time right now is spent on the building project and fundraising, and doing those things, which are two things I enjoy an awful lot as well.
Did you talk about students a lot? Are there other primary stakeholders of the student union? Could you identify some of those for us?
Yeah, the student union is that one place, we often say it's that kind of the life cycle of the student union, and particularly on this campus because of the student service facility, the hotel, and other things which are part of our union. It's the first place that most students come to, and it's the last place they go when they graduate. So it's usually the first time when they come to campus, whether it be for a campus visit or orientation, but it's also the last place they come to get their cap and gown before they graduate, and then they come back through our doors as alumni on homecoming and other days. So our constituency is current students, future students, past students, alumni, city, community, state. We have a lot of stakeholders, faculty, yeah. So all of our constituencies use our facility and use it heavily.
Sort of leads into the next question. What are the major operational units in the student union? How are they organized and managed?
The union, I have several direct reports. I have 3 assistant directors. I have an assistant director of retail business operations, Lance Hinkle, who oversees the bookstore, and then all of our retail spaces. We lease those out in the building. So he oversees that. I have an assistant director of operations, Manny Al-Haraki, and Manny oversees the custodial. We have our own maintenance crews and mechanics and carpenters. It's a 611,000 square foot facility, so we break a lot of things and got to maintain them and keep them operational. I have an assistant director of administrative services. We're right now, just the union side of things, we're about a $20 million a year enterprise. And so therefore we have a lot of HR and marketing and IT and accounts receivable and accounts payable, all of those elements. I have meeting conference services as a direct report. And then as of last year, we've always had dining as part of the union in our own operations, but now olive dining reports to me campus-wide. That's the irony of food service. I left it only to get it all back again later in life.
We're talking about in the residence hall
Yeah.
as well as catering.
Yeah, every campus-wide, olive dining now reports. It reports back to Terry Baker, who's the director of dining. Then Terry reports to me, and then campus life reports back to the student union. Kent Sampson's my associate director and also director of campus life, and that reports back to my operation as well too.
So Ken reports through you as opposed to through vice president for student.
That's correct. Yep.
What are you talked about being a $20 million operation here? What are the primary funding sources for the student union? What are your revenue streams?
Bookstore is our primary one. The union itself is about a $20 million a year enterprise. Food service is another $15 million. So budgetarily, I have a responsibility for about $35 million annually. On the student union side of things, the bookstore makes up about 85% of our operational budget. And that's a really good thing that we generate that money. It goes right back into our operation, and it allows us to keep fees and other things low from passing on to students. So it funds a lot of campus life. It funds a lot of other activities and events on campus. 10% comes from student fees, and those fees are attributed to bonds that we've had for either historical building projects or initiatives. And then 5% comes from rental space. We have a lot of lease spaces in the building, both private retail as well as offices that are housed in the union that pay. So altogether, the biggest contributor to that though is the bookstore, and then food service contributes as well too. But most of food service dollars go back into food service to maintain its campus-wide operations.
Have the roles and functions of the student union changed over the years at OSU?
I don't know that the roles have changed. I think our how we achieve our goals and our missions maybe change. One of the interesting things, if you're a student of student unions, is that they have been on the cutting front of a lot of new things that happen on college campuses pretty consistently. Historically we were developed around the idea of the debating societies, and then they added in these business enterprises on top of those. So then during the 50s and 60s, you kind of see the growth of a lot of auxiliary business enterprises and recreational type of elements inside a student union develop. Then the latter part of the 60s and the early 70s, you start seeing a lot of the entertainment and student government and self-government aspects of higher education happening, particularly in the late 60s when you had a lot of the student governments became very radicalized because of the Vietnam movement and demanded a role at the table with the university as far as a shared governance structure. Then you start moving into the 80s and you start seeing technology with ID card systems and computers, and once again student unions led a lot of those were at the front of those new technologies and implementing a lot of those. So we stand now, I think, on the next bridge of looking at what those next set of technologies, the next kind of forefront of what we're going to be doing, because things have changed dramatically again on how we operate and how we deliver our services.
You mentioned that OSU's been on the cutting edge.
Yeah.
How is the OSU student union perceived in your national organization?
It's considered one of the premier student unions nationally. One of the things that the OSU Student Union has also been on the cutting front of a lot of new innovative ideas. It was the first union that implemented a mall type of food court. Prior to that, you had kind of dining halls, and you didn't have a lot of retail type of spaces. It was the first one that incorporated a lot of the mall kind of concepts, where you had shops and various things that people would go to. Student Union also, funding-wise, was it was the first one that was ever funded with no tax-based dollars. It was bonds that were raised and the students' fees, so we were the first one to do that. That's pretty common how things get done today, but back in 1948 when that happened, we were the first ones to do that.
Trying to move forward, you look maybe 10, 20 years down the road, what do you see, how do you think the OSU Student Union will evolve and change in the future?
You know, it's hard to say because, the future's so fluid. What I hope will happen is that we will continue our role of providing services and programs that benefit students in the campus. How we do that's going to change pretty dramatically. I think technology is obviously going to influence that dramatically. Where you go from the late 80s where everybody's walking around with a Walkman to today, with the iPods. And so technology obviously is influencing a lot of what we do and how we do things. I think that we're going to have to be more value added in our services. I think education's at a point where the support in public institutions has diminished as far as what kind of money comes in. And so people are really looking at those educational opportunities that I would consider value added. That when they come that they're getting a true value, and I think we have to be very conscientious about our role and what we do inside of that. I think our traditional role of providing that kind of home away from home for students is as critical as it's ever been. Students on campuses with all the technology have kind of dissipated to their own individual corners, and they don't socialize or engage or interact as much as they used to. And I think we have a real role to try to help and play that, because I think we know significantly the value of community building and what that means to the college and what it means to students. So I think we've got to really work hard on how we do that. Technology, once again, I think will play a critical role in all of that. I think the future of the student union is still an awful lot about campus life. I mean, Dr. Bennett's vision almost 60 years ago, or longer than that, but the student union's almost 60 years old here on campus. But his vision for the student union is as relevant today as it was back then. We still need to influence socially, culturally, and academically what happens on a campus. We may do that passively, through art or activities or events or whatever, the services we offer. But what he laid out is still relevant 60 years later. It's just a different way of doing it.
You identified earlier students as probably primary stakeholders. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me a little about student programming and activities and services at the student union?
Yeah, the student union does a lot of different programs and activities. SUAB, Student Union Activities Board, has been, since the doors opened in 1951, have been here and been a critical part of our operation and is a mainstay of what we do. Whether it's the movies they offer or bands or entertainment, but even they are evolving and changing dramatically. We now have the Xbox and all of that. We have those kind of games and activities that are going on. But once again, their core mission is still the same, is to build community around the student union and to provide engagement opportunities for individuals. Campus life is probably one of our greatest assets. When I sat down and did evaluation preparing for our building project, I asked people three things. What is it we do well? What should we do better? And where should I spend my resources and time? And in essence, what I heard back from them is campus life was our greatest asset. Ken Sampson has done a fabulous job with developing that program. And it's a model for a lot of other campuses to look at. We're trying to take that model and actually do something significantly different than what has been done in the past. Most campus activities or campus life departments are built around like student government and programming, Greek life, and then student organization. Kent has the added responsibility as international student services as a part of that, volunteer services, parents association. And so we built this kind of nexus of activity around the campus life. The unfortunate part is we have them in the basement, so we're trying to rectify that on our building project and get them in a very high-profile way. But we think we have another role to play in all of that, that if we can put them in a very prominent, high-profile area, surround them with some other key offices, whether it be the Office of Diversity of Inclusion or Multicultural Services on campus, study abroad program, which is a key element of what the university is trying to do with getting students to have an experience in another country as part of their college activities. We think by positioning all of that together in a very high-profile way that we can influence, do a little social engineering, that we can influence a lot of students pretty positively. So that's a real critical part of what we're trying to achieve right now.
They go from students to former students, alumni.
That's right.
And why, Mitch, in your mind, why is it you think that our alumni have such a positive feeling about the student union?
It can't be that they had to pay their bill at the bursar. It can't be that they had to buy their books. I think what it attributes to is, and what I attribute it to is, it's their home away from home. It's where they have memories of where they met somebody. It's a significant event in their life, whether it be through campus life and all the various programs and services that are offered in there. Sometimes it's just as silly as eating in a restaurant, the same restaurant during their college and their engagement. But ultimately, it's all of those things kind of wrapped up into one. We talk about the building and say, people look at that steeple on campus and it emotes a tremendous amount of different emotions, and people feel very, very strongly about it when they see that. And you got to ask yourself, is it about the building or is it about what's inside of the building? And really, it's kind of the house and home theory. The union is the house, but really what happens inside is what makes it a home. And I think that's what draws people to that is the notion of home. Friends, family, colleagues, it all comes together around lunch or just hanging out or going to an event or activity. I think that's what drives a lot of it.
You're amazed at the stories, quote unquote, that you hear, I think you're calling student union memories that people have. And very passionate about it.
Yes. Yeah, the one thing that this union has done a tremendous job doing is documenting its history. We've got just tons and tons of photos, and I hear from people all the time, that tell me about a significant event. Maybe it was going to a howdy dance, and that's where they met their significant other, or it was about how and I haven't been able to ascertain on whether this is an urban myth or reality about a bull in the elevator going up to the 4th floor. I have names, and I will not divulge that at this point in time, but as I understand it, at some point there was a cow put in the elevator and taken to the 4th floor of the student union and let loose. People just have very, very fond memories around it. The ballroom, activities, events, the lounges. Starlight Terrace. Yeah. That's right. And, people just, they see it or hear it, and it just immediately takes them to a place in time that they have some of the most wonderful experiences of their life, and they attribute it to that building.
You mentioned two things, the icon.
Yeah.
Our library, it's really, I use the word icon.
It is an icon.
And immediately then it brings back certain memories and images. Another thing is, for years and years, the byline was the heart of the campus.
Yeah.
The heart of the campus. Yeah. I guess that's part of that philosophy you're talking about to students being the heart of the campus for them.
Yeah, the student, people always ask me, does it have the right name? It says, yeah, in the student union. I mean, students paid for that building through books, burgers, and fees, one way or another. They've paid for that building, but they also use it. 1.5 million people a year go through that building. 1.5 million. We got counters on the doors, so we track them in that. And they come there for a whole variety of different reasons on it, but students really take ownership of that building. And on our building project, we involve students heavily in what we're doing right now. And students have kept me very mindful about what we do to the building and how we do it, because how people look at it and how they see it is definitely tied to the psyche of our alumni. And so we want to make sure that we maintain that history and that tradition. If you look at what we have branded our building projects, it's called Building on Traditions, because that's very much what we feel very strongly about is what worked well when the doors opened in 1951. Those traditions and those values are still relevant today, and we're really embracing those. Now, we may deliver services and programs differently, but that's the values that we're embracing.
Maybe you're kind of going that way, maybe we can just follow up that question. If you could tell us a little about the plan for renovating the student union and your fundraising campaign that you have with them.
And we started when I started here, I told you earlier on, I kind of wanted to let the water kind of run by. And I got here and we heard a lot of people were very interested in us moving forward with the building project. They felt it was time that we needed to do that. So we moved a little faster than what I thought we were going to be ready to do, and we put together a group of students and staff, and we evaluated unions around the United States and studied our union and came up with a series of initiatives and priorities that we need to address in a renovation. And we've spent the last 3 years developing that and have come up with a program and a project that is about an $80 million project in scope, and we have funded it to date at $53 million. And we'll actually start some construction later this fall. And we're trying to do the remaining fundraising for that between the $53 and the $80 million to complete the full scope of the building project. I often tell people that when you manage the world's largest student union, you get the largest bills to fix it. So it's not a cheap endeavor. But once again, I think it's such a significant element of the campus that we really need to be mindful about what we do. And we have involved faculty, staff, alumni, everybody in this process to make sure that we're on target.
Can you share some major conceptual changes that you're going to have for that maintenance upgrade?
Two different things. One of them is good news, bad news type of things. I talked earlier on about the quality of the staff and their abilities. One of the true benefits of having a really talented staff is they have done a tremendous job of maintaining that building operationally long past its life cycle on a lot of the mechanical systems. We have systems in the 1951 building that are close to 60 years of age, and so we have to go back and do some significant infrastructure mechanical upgrades. I've often told them, says we may have been better off to let something fail at some point. Maybe we would have got it done a little bit sooner. But they take a lot of pride in making sure things function, and I'm very happy and pleased with that as well too. So we got to go fix all of those things, infrastructure, mechanical systems. All of that has to get done. It's very costly to operate and maintain that building, and there's a lot of efficiencies that we can gain by investing in that. Secondly, we want to continue with maintaining our history of having a strong economic engine via our bookstore and food service operations, so we can maintain that history of generating revenue and putting it back into our operation so that we're not unduly passing on fees and other things to students that are unnecessary, that we take that money and reinvest it back to the students. In order for us to do that, we have to bring our food service and our bookstore and our retail operations up to snuff a little bit. So those are kind of the two big key elements that we're doing. And then the third thing that we're really focusing on is to give back those spaces and enhance and improve student spaces. We want to get campus life out of the basement and get them on the second floor and put them in probably some of the best spaces in the whole building. For a couple reasons. One is we want to make a statement about how we feel about students, and this is their building. Number two is we want to be very purposeful in what we're doing with our greatest asset and try to leverage that a little bit more to help be a greater benefit to the campus academic mission through our out-of-classroom experiences and our programs and services that we have. So we think we can do that by some significant improvements there. And then we're planning on just, the rest of it is just upgrading the rest of the building, offices and meeting rooms.
Kind of all out of them.
Yeah, probably one of the most exciting parts about it is the North Plaza on the north side of the building. I said earlier that 1.5 million people enter our doors annually. About 70% of them enter the northwest corner, that smallest area between the library and where our C-store on the northwest corner by the Kyle clock. And so what has happened on campus, if you were to look at it, you have the academic core on the northwest corner where the library is, and the plaza and the campus quad, and then you have the athletic core, which is being built with the stadium, and then all of the new academic development happening up Hester Street. So that north plane of the building becomes a critical element about how people engage our building. And so we're going to put a plaza out where the Kyle clock is. Kyle clock will stay there. It's a signature item for us. But we're going to really enhance that space and make some really great outdoor space out there. We're also going to take the original backside of the Student Union that faced Old Central, and it would have been the terrace. And we're taking, that's covered up now by the student service in the atrium, which you can't see anymore. But we're going to take that look and feel of the backside of the Union, and that's what's going to come out on the front side of the north side. That's going to be our new entry point and portal. So we're going back and taking something historical that has been lost and or bringing it back as a signature piece. And we'll have a new terrace that will overlook, just like we did in the Starlight Terrace, that'll overlook the plaza, and our meeting rooms will come out on that. Very exciting.
You alluded earlier to Dr. Bennett, President Bennett,
Yeah.
and his dream, his vision.
Yeah.
How prominent and important was the student union? Again, you mentioned in his vision of the university.
I think it was critical. I think he was very visionary. I mean, the master plan was laid out in 1937. The student union movement was already in the United States, but it was fairly new and growing at that point in time, and he latched onto that and saw that as a significant element of what would really truly help improve the quality of life for students on campus. And not just for students, but for everybody. He really saw this building as what it is today, is this significant iconic building that everybody, campus, alumni, students, faculty, staff gather around. And he saw that it would have purpose and meaning, and it has and will continue to have.
Can you share some of your memorable experiences as director of the student union over the last 5 years?
Probably the most memorable, I hate to keep on going back to the building project, but that's been such a significant part of ours. Early on, I decided that I wanted students heavily engaged in this process. And so when we sat down and developed our design team and our development team, we put the same number of students as staff on that design team. I also then took the student body president and made them co-chair, had the same authority that I did. And it went back to something that I've known for a long time in my profession, that a well-educated student about the facts and reality of what you're trying to accomplish and get done is a lethal tool to have, because they will take what needs to happen and will understand it and can move an agenda forward ahead of times, a lot of times where I cannot. And so we opened our doors and our books and everything. I could sit a student that sat on that design team in this chair, and they could tell you everything that I know about the building project because they have been that engaged in it. So that's one of my great memories is how they have influenced what we're doing towards the future. And I'm proud because of that. That really says a lot about who we are as an organization. We are the student union. They should be involved with what we're doing, and they have been and will continue to be.
You sound like you probably maybe answered a question I had in my mind.
Okay.
What accomplishment the student union you've been most proud of during your tenure here?
Probably the renovation will be one of them. I think being able to improve the services and maintain the quality of the expectation that I think people have of that facility. I think we work very hard every day to make sure that we represent the campus and how in our little piece of what we can do on it. But our staff takes a lot of pride in the fact that we play a small part in a very big role of the campus, and we want to make sure that we support that.
What have been the traditions and legacies of the student union things you historically look at as the traditions of the student union?
Well, we've played a lot of different roles. We have I may have to come back to that for a second, Jerry, because some of us leaving me. But obviously, homecoming, Greek life is a significant part. A lot of it goes back to campus life. Follies, Howdy Week, Alpha, enrollment, orientation. Recently, I think we've played a really significant role in the orientation and the recruitment effort of the university. Hope to continue to play a larger role in all of that. Obviously just day-to-day life of a student getting something to eat and going to hang out and playing pool or, seeing their friends. Bowling, you mentioned that. That's when I was out doing all of our research, that was probably the one or two top three things when I talk to people my age or older. They would always ask me, when you're doing the renovation project, you're going to put the bowling alley back in again. That always is raised on it. Love to, very expensive to do so. Yeah, very big.
Mitch, kind of a speculative kind of question.
Mm-hmm.
Looking back, fast forward and look back, okay, in your tenure as you step down as director and hopefully several years now, how do you hope people will remember you?
That's an interesting question. I haven't thought about that, Jerry. The obvious question is what have you heard on it? I think what I would hopefully be remembered, I always have said this about my job. I said I always wanted to be that guy on campus that when the president or somebody walks by, I recognize a face, I can't put a name to it. That's always who I've wanted to be. I'm more comfortable in that guy that makes sure things get done and happen. I don't feel an overwhelming need to be in front of something. I kind of like that role of being behind the scenes on it. So I hope that I'm remembered as somebody that worked really hard, had the best interests of students in mind, and worked hard to progress the mission of the university through whatever role that I had to play in all of that.
And your final question for you, have we fulfilled UNG Bennett's dream for the student union, what he wanted it to be?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think we fourfold on it, and I think I talk about this a lot when I go out and talk on fundraising. I beckon back to his time, and I often reference what he says and talk about what his vision was there, because I truly, in my heart of heart, believe that what he believed in there is as relevant today as it was back then, and I don't think we're able to, under our current constraints of how the facility is structured, how it operates, and because we have to do some real physical things to improve upon it, I don't think that we're able to deliver the programs and service at the same level that they were 60 years ago on it, and we need to go back to that and to re-elevate that, because I think the facility has the capacity to continue his dream and vision, and that's kind of my mission, is to make sure that we do that.
You've probably given this I'll say pitch, maybe, why should someone give to the student union project? Why should someone make a major gift to it?
A couple different things. One of the unique things, students decided to charge themselves a new fee. We didn't get to just put that on them. They made a decision to fund a fee for this building project. And the way this kind of worked out, they said, Mitch, we can't over leverage our future of the students. And I love that about Oklahoma State. It's a very pragmatic state. They can see the vision, but they're also very pragmatic students and staff and faculty that have lived here and worked here their whole life, understand that we have done well because we have managed our resources very well. So when the students decided to charge themselves a fee, they couldn't charge them the full amount of what we needed to do to build the building. But they could meet me halfway. So they said, we'll do this if you'll go out and do an active fundraising part of all of that. The students that were involved in that process had the opportunity, some faculty asked them independently of me being there, somebody asked a student once, says, why should students in the future give money to something that they're never going to benefit? And a student walked in and said, because somebody did it for them. So they got it. They got the idea of the legacy of moving it forward. I think why people should give to this building project is it is probably one of the single facilities on campus that will benefit every student on campus both now, into the future, and into the past. Faculty, staff, I mean, our constituency is very broad-based, and an investment in the student union, I think, touches a lot of people. So if you look at that pragmatic approach that Oklahomans have, you get kind of a bang for buck for some of this too. And it will touch a lot of lives in a very, very positive way. But more importantly than that, I think it will continue the legacy that was left when Dr. Bennett put down of how it's going to continue to help students progress during their college time here, long beyond their graduation. Okay.
Appreciate it, Mitch. Thank you
No problem.
so much for spending time with us today, and I appreciate your passion.
Love to do that.